the Aerosedan up on jack stands. What the f are you playing for?
My dreams.
You know what the f pause means? Alright, I got the Aerosedan up on jack stands, as you can see, and I have the body centered and squared up now and bolted in. And in the rear, I just ended up using a few extra body mounts to shim the rear up for now. I haven't made the decision if I am going to do a pie cut somewhere along the frame rails to bring the frame rail up so that I only need one of the 3 body shims under here. That's something we may end up doing. Not going to decide on that quite yet. And then up front, I ended up making a pair of aluminum spacers to space between the body mount pad and the frame and the body there. And that worked out really good. So you can see that's how much the frame is lower than it usually is, because it tacoed that little bit when I was welding it. And I don't know if you can see the frame. Hard to see a little bit, but there's ever so slightly a bow in the part where I sectioned on the new bottom there after cutting that 1.5 inches of frame off. So it's kind of hard to see, but that little bit made that much of a difference. Now the other thing is, before when the body was on last time, I just had only, I think, 4 of the bolts in on the rubber pads, and I definitely didn't have the front bolts in, and so I can't remember if it was sitting on those pads or not. So the frame might not be as bowed as I remember. It is possible that there's some type of shim that is supposed to go under there anyways, but kind of doubt it. So I think the frame is changed shape that much, but we have this much of a shim that we're dealing with. And so at the front here, where the radiator core support mounts off of this, we'll need to add at least that much of a shim to shim everything up. And then the front bumper mounts to these holes right here, and so that bracket will have to be Z'd to come up so that the front bumper is in the right position. And then also, I believe the inner fender rests on this frame rail here, which is now going to be lower, so we're going to have to address that as well. I probably won't be getting the front fenders and all that mounted up on here for a little while yet. I'm going to focus on getting all of the material back in the trunk and over the notch for the floor pans, and then work on getting the transmission tunnel built, and then we can connect the transmission tunnel to the sheet metal over the notch with the drive shaft tunnel, and that will secure everything back up really well, and we'll get as much of the sheet metal work done as we can. The floors have a few patches in them from some time ago, and they're kind of ugly looking, and there's definitely some thinner metal here, a couple little holes. This is a little bit Swiss cheesed. Underneath here, there's a cross member that goes, and this is where the bench seat bolts to. And you can see the remnants of that cross member right there a little bit. So when I build the drive shaft tunnel and trans tunnel and everything, I'll have to make a box section that comes in to connect both sides up again and add some strength back in there. But for now, I'm not gonna go crazy on doing the floor pan. I'll just take an angle grinder and buzz these ugly welds down. And then in the spring here, the frame and everything else will get a coat of high quality primer, and that'll be it for now. Eventually, the car is gonna get fully taken back apart, and we're gonna get it sandblasted to bare metal. And at that point, I'll replace the inner rocker panels. I'll replace the floor sections from these rocker panels, the outer and the top here, the sill plate, which is good. I'll replace the floors from there over to the trans and drive shaft tunnel. I just don't want to do that right now. I don't think it's really necessary, and I want to get everything down to bare metal for when I do that, so that all that effort will turn out as good as possible. And so what I'll do when I build the trans tunnel, drive shaft tunnel, anything that is going to connect to something that might be replaced, I'll make an extra wide flange so that when I eventually take this floor out, there'll be enough of that metal to attach to that I won't have to redo the trans tunnel and the drive shaft tunnel. Although maybe a couple years from now when that's happening, I'll be a better fabricator as far as sheet metal and stuff goes, so maybe I'll want to do it. But for now, we're just going to live with a lot of this stuff. But we're going to get started tomorrow on all the prep work for the sheet metal and start making some templates. And then we'll start making some flanges for the new panels to mount to. I also need to have a look at the gas tank, so I'll probably have to put the car back on the ground actually to see if that factory tank is going to work. Otherwise, I'll just have to either use a universal one, or I can make one from some aluminum flat sheets. So that's what's going to be happening this week. The plan is to start from the back, move our way forward, do the trunk pan, do the vertical part on the back side of the notch. We'll build a platform on top of the C notch here so that the air tank can mount up top here, and then the rest of the airlift 3H control center system will have somewhere to mount to. We'll build that framework with a bunch of nut certs, so the sheet metal panel that goes on top will be removable, so we can get access to the top of the shock, the airline here, the top of the airbag. Everything will be serviceable that way. So we'll build a framework up out of some flat stock pieces and do a little bridge up and over as well for where the air tank mounts are going to be. I love seeing this thing on the ground. It's really motivating. But then this huge wave of being overwhelmed kind of rolls over you a little bit, because now the project really begins.
This could have been done. If it's gonna happen, it's just not that easy.